Welcome to the Earth Up podcast. On this episode, I want to catch you up with the NBA. Football's done. We crowned another champion, and the very forgettable All-Star game, which the NBA is going to parade around because it was the highest rated All-Star game in 15 years or whatever it was. Um, but it was Team World versus Team USA, which the concept is cool. But it kind of took away all the momentum when at the end it was just the two Team USA teams. If you're gonna do this gimmick, then do the gimmick correctly and go all in and have a full roster of international players, a full roster of American players, and then really give us this Team USA versus Team World. Um, but that came and went. And now all eyes are on the NBA in terms of who owns the sports calendar and who holds it up until the World Cup. Because, baseball starts in this weekend, actually. I think this weekend is when we get the first spring training. But baseball doesn't really get a hold of the calendar until August. And so from here to June, basketball is front and center, and then it goes to the international football as the World Cup starts in June. Um, but here we have in the NBA, as we've come to more than the halfway point, but we're in this part of the season where everything's now gearing up for the stretch run. And one of the things that came out of the the converse of the All-Star game, and one of the conversations that was had was all the tanking that's happening. And so the Utah Jazz got in trouble because they tanked, and the NBA fined them, and Adam Silver had a whole thing on how everything's on the table and for tanking, and the NBA is gonna go into the offseason with the rules committee, and they're gonna try to see what they do. And so it's one of those things that the NBA has allowed for such a long time. And because it's allowed it for such a long time and it's such an accepted part of the game, the only way you're gonna really get rid of it is if you really start to crack down on teams. And if you really start to get on everyone's case about really taking this serious. And that's the only way that this is going to happen. Utah, for example, they got fined $500,000 because they pretty much sat down Laurie Markkinen and Jaron, Jack- Jaron Jackson Jr. in the fourth quarter in a game that was very competitive, in a game that they won. But it was very competitive, and at the end they just didn't play their two best players. And so typically we see this behavior late March, all of April, and it's February and we're starting to get it now. And the Pacers got fined 100,000 for something similar, not as egregious as the Jazz, but in the same ballpark. And so this was the talking point in the All-Star game. This was the big conversation that the league now has to fix. And I think the only way this gets fixed is by adjusting the schedule. One, there's too many games. And because there's too many games, it allows for the tanking to look awful, for the tanking to look even more egregious because it's not, like in football, if a team's not interested in winning a lot of games, um, you can kind of hide them, and it's only 17 games, and you can kind of just hide them away. Or um, there is there is truly a real hope in winning the draft in the NFL, where in basketball, it just doesn't have the same hope, which kind of doesn't make sense because you would think it would have the opposite effect in basketball because one player has so much power in the NBA because the rosters are smaller. But one of the things you get in football is you get this rotating cast of teams that go from the worst to okay, and then maybe they flirt with the playoffs, and then you get teams that are horribly run, like the Browns and teams like that. But for the most part, you get these teams that are competitive and they're trying to win. They're trying um, the best that they can to win. And in basketball, it looks so much worse because it's just so obvious the teams that are taking it serious, so obvious the teams that are willing to invest all their assets into not winning basketball games. And it's why I think the league is now forced into doing something over a topic that I don't think the league really cared to fix. And if you're gonna push this idea that you want everybody to care about your games and you want everyone to be locked in, and it's why you have the in-season tournament because you want to bring more eyeballs to the regular season. You kind of have to get your players to care about the regular season. You kind of have to get your teams to care about winning. Because if day in and day out we're watching these teams not care about winning, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of why you're telling us to watch. And the sad part about the NBA is that you can miss all of it. You can miss from November to or late October to like March, and you can kind of be okay with where you're at. You kind of don't have to know about a lot of it. And a lot of it is because these teams don't care about the winning and the players don't care about playing. And this is the stuff that the NBA has rules in place. They just have to enforce them. And the big conversation that's you're going to hear all over the place is how do we fix it? How do we fix the lottery? And who knows? Who knows? I think that the the only way that I think this truly gets fixed, and I don't think this is going to happen, but the only way something like this gets fixed is everybody has to show up understanding, knowing that the system has to be completely gutted, that the system completely has to change for this to even have a chance of succeeding. And part of it is we have to eliminate um, the connection between the records and where you draft. And we're so used to the worst teams get the best young players, and the only way to remove that is by removing the incentive of having a bad record. Because if your record doesn't matter, then maybe this is the way that you're able to truly get teams to care about the regular season and try to win as many games as possible because it's not going to matter how many games you lose. Something that I would like to see, and again, it's not gonna happen, but because I think all the small market teams are gonna say that you need to be tied up to the they need the high draft picks. They need the lottery. They need the draft because that's how they're gonna build. That's how they're gonna be able to do these things because it's the only way they're going to be able to draft these superstars, the only way they're going to be able to keep these superstars and all this stuff. And the thing that's wrong about that line of thinking is that we had the Sixers forever tanking and the trust the process Sixers forever. And Philadelphia is not a small market. That team is not owned by uh, owners that are cheap, and that team was able to really pour resources in there in that team to make a tank a real tank. And so even in a situation where a big market team wants to kind of do the process of OKC a few years ago, of Philadelphia. a big market team is able to do that even better. So that argument kind of falls apart for the smaller markets. But we need to remove our connection from of the records to where you draft. And I think the only way you do that is by making the draft randomized every year. And maybe so that we don't get a situation where the champion gets the number one pick. Maybe you do where if you make the conference chat finals, so the four teams that make the conference finals, those four teams get slotted in to the randomly into the last four spots. And maybe that's how you do it. Everybody else, everybody else that doesn't make the conference finals kind of gets thrown into a lottery and you just start picking teams randomly. And then wherever you land is where you draft. And that would, I think, eliminate a, a lot of the problems. It would eliminate a lot of the tanking because you would have no incentive at all to tank. Right now, the problem with tanking is that you're incentivized to do it. And so if you're running a team and you have a high draft pick and you realize you're not going to compete, the smart thing to do, the competitive thing to do is to tank. So I don't fault Utah for doing that. I don't fault Indiana for doing that. I don't fault the Wizards for doing that because the system is built for you to take advantage of it. The Spurs did this, and that's how they ended up with Wemby. OKC did it forever, and now they have a roster full of young dudes that you could make the argument that they're able to split their team in two, and one roster is a championship roster, their starting lineup, and their bench is a team that would probably flirt with the playing game. And so the system is built for these teams to do this. And so the only way that I think the NBA is really going to be able to get away from all this is removing the incentives. And Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, has been probably the most praised guy. I think, everybody hates Roger Goodell, so everyone automatically thinks he sucks. Rob Manfred, we're not sure he likes baseball, and so he gets criticized. And so Adam Silver, because of the way he handled the Donald Sterling thing, and he's living off of that moment. And not to not to be negative, but the Donald Sterling was an easy thing to handle. The NBA forever wanted him gone. And when the NBA had enough juice, enough, I don't even know evidence because they've had evidence forever. But when it was like enough where the players were saying we're going to boycott a playoff game, and that was when the Clippers were playing the Warriors that year. Adam Silver did what the easiest decision he had to make. So even that decision, where he gets so much credit for, was a decision that was just wrapped. It was wrapped and was put in a silver platter for him to just push the button. And so the thing that we have to now monitor is Adam Silver. This is your league now, and this is what you're going to be remembered for. And this is where you begin to see the type of guy he is, the type of commissioner he is. And up until now, he's done nothing to to garner the confidence in the fans that he is able to do this. He's done nothing to make us believe that he is going to fix the NBA. I think contrary, I think he's going to somehow make it worse because all he's done in his entire tenure is pander to the players. And this is where we miss a David Stern for because David Stern wouldn't have stood for this, and so that is like the big talking point. That's what's going to be talked about a lot. So I wanted to mention that from the beginning, just so that if you're kind of wondering like where are we in terms of basketball, where are we in terms of the NBA, what is happening, what is being said, this is where we're at. This is the stuff that you're gonna hear, and this is the stuff that you kind of need to know. Um, I have 30 questions. 30 questions, one question for every team. And so I'm gonna go through it. I have these different tiers, and so I'm gonna go through it, ask the question, and that way you get a good idea of where are we in the NBA. So I'm doing these in terms of record, worst to best, and we'll go from there. Um, as I want you to be caught up because starts again tomorrow. It's been entire All-Star break, and tomorrow we got games again. So we're starting with the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento Kings, the saddest team, the saddest franchise in American team sports. Like who's even? I think if you're in a conversation of the worst franchise, the worst team, it's hard to beat the Kings. It's really hard to beat the Kings. Anyway, they've lost 14 straight. They're 12 and 44. It's a roster that makes no sense. And today it was announced that Zach Levine's out for the year, and um, it was they announced that um, Domantas Sabonis is out for the year. So the Kings are, their roster makes no sense. Their roster is not good. So to say they're tanking is they suck. They have no choice but to tank. But they're 12 and 44, worst record in basketball, um, and lost 14 straight, which is pretty insane. Pretty crazy. Anyway, 12 and 44. The question for them, and the answer is probably no. But I wanted to be fair. I didn't want to be mean throughout the entire process. So this is the bottom of the league. I got five teams here. So, question for the Kings: can the Kings find a silver lining in all this? Is there some kind of silver lining in the life of of the Kings in that organization? Um, and what I mean by that is this a season, and with their owner, probably not, that wakes them up, that wakes the fans up, because they have good fans there. But it just seems like they're going to be stuck in this situation um, until A, they demand a new owner, and B, you do that by boycotting their games. And is that the silver lining? Is there a silver lining in this horrible season where next season you go into next season and what do you have to look forward to? What are you excited about if you're the Sacramento Kings? You look at this team and you just think like, who are these players? What is this collection of guys? And I think it's one of those situations where the fans need to take their team back. And the way you take your team back is by um, hurting the pocketbooks of the rich owner that owns the team. And so that might be the silver lining. Can they find a silver lining? Maybe revolting against Vivek, the owner of the Sacramento Kings. Maybe. Washington Wizards 14 and 39. They they are um, the weirdest team in the trade deadline. I think it's fair to say that. They acquired AD from the Mavericks. They acquired Trey Young from the Hawks. I don't think neither guy is going to play for them this year. They took on D'Angelo Russell, and they were the team that said, you know what, give us your stars. Give us. We'll take on Trey Young that nobody wants, and we'll give you nothing for him. And you know what, Dallas, we'll kind of clear you of AD, and Dallas just the Luca trade just gets worse and worse for them. But they have AD and Trey, and you're like, okay, well, next year, your roster is going to be a weird roster because you're going to have a bunch of young dudes and Anthony Davis and Trey Young. And in the East, this is, like a fifth seed, sixth seed. If you're able to get 60 games from AD, in the East, I think this team can be middle of the pack. And so, worst record in the East, they're going to get another high draft pick. Maybe, in this draft that's being called one of the deepest drafts we've had since '03, and maybe you get a real solidified dude. Maybe that changes everything. Alex R maybe can develop into something that is really exciting. Um, but it's a weird team, and it's almost like the owners told uh the manager, the GM, we got to start winning. Enough is enough. And maybe. And part of it, according to stuff I've read, is the fans weren't showing up, the fans weren't supporting this team, and the owners were like, "All right, we'll start putting a winning product next year." So Kings, maybe that's what you do. Just don't show up. Don't hurt the pocketbooks, and maybe they'll start running things competently. But the question: will the Wizards find an established guy among their young core? And that's really the question for Washington, because chances are you're gonna keep Trey Young and Anthony Davis up until, well, I don't see them extending them, but maybe they build their trade value and and they flip them next season. But that's the question. Can they find like a true franchise guy? And if they're able to do it, then it kind of changes how we see Washington in this entire process, because the process of tanking, and OKC had this whole thing where they were upset because they own Utah's pick, and so the more Utah loses, the lower the chances that OKC gets Utah's pick. And Sam Presti has the audacity to complain that, bro, your team is built on tanking. You shut down Shea for 2 years because you wanted, this is what you wanted to tank. You sent Al Horford home because you didn't want him to play because you weren't interested in winning games. So this whole, like, that part was crazy. But Ken Washington, in the midst of all this, whether it's Sar or whoever they draft, can they find a true guy? And if they can, then all this was worth it. Uh, Brooklyn Nets. They're 15-38 heading into the second part of the NBA season. And as we look at Brooklyn, who has been just, they've been a really bad team. They The question I have for them, because it seems like they finally committed to the tank. They got rid of um they have a team that's young enough where they are fully committed to just making this happen. And when you have a lot of young guys, you're gonna lose a lot of games. And so the question that I have for them is, can you make something from this roster? Can they make it and mold it and build these young guys into valuable trade assets or valuable assets on the roster? And that's the question that I have for them, because that's the question that they're going to need to ask. because they had five draft picks in last year's draft. They used all of them, which was surprising to everyone. And we find ourselves now with this with they found themselves, not us. They find themselves in this conundrum of where are they in terms of the roster building? What is this team gonna be? Are you gonna build around um the young guys? Are you gonna make um Porter a key part of your team? Like what is this team? Would probably be the better way to ask it. What is this team? What is going to be this team next year? The Indiana Pacers, 15 and 40. Um, and the Pacers have been just very competitive. They've tried some nights, most nights. They're not in the group of Utah or any of that. But can this team build momentum for next season? Because they traded for Zubac, and now they have their center. You're expecting them to have Halliburton healthy next year, and now you get a roster that's championship built and with real aspirations to make at least the finals because you know that you've done it. And so, can this work? Can this gap year? Can this year of losing all these games? Can it generate you another high draft pick? You get another young player in there. Can this work? That's the question I have for them. For Utah, is this the last year they're tanking? That's the question I have for them. Is this the last year of the tank? We had Danny Ainge. Utah was 18 and 38. Danny Ainge, Danny Ainge's son, yeah, his son came out and was saying like, we're not going to tank this year and blah 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 blah, and everybody was like, yeah, right. And is this the last year? Everyone seems to like the coach. And maybe their coach is really good. Maybe the Jazz coach is a really good coach, and maybe um, he's not just somebody that is well liked because everybody loves Will Hardy. Everybody just, oh, Will Hardy is such an amazing coach, and blah blah blah. And he keeps getting extended. He keeps getting paid by Utah. But at what point are we going to see it? And so, is this the last year of the tank? Would be my question for the Utah Jazz. We get into the middle tier. In the middle tier, I got four teams. Milwaukee, 18 and 29. The Giannis stuff is, the soap opera of the NBA. He's technically never demanded a trade. He's technically hasn't said it, but he has said, I want to win titles, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be here. So I want to win. And if it's not here, then it's going to be somewhere else. But I'm not saying I want to get traded. I just want to win, and it doesn't look like it's going to be here. And so it's like this stance. And the question I have for them is: this season worth it? Is it worth to bring back Giannis? Is it worth it to go for it? Because you can get a high draft pick. And this is what I mean with the system that's built in terms of tanking. I would like to see it change, but until it gets changed, this is a system that these teams are given, and it is idiotic to not take advantage of it. So if you're Milwaukee, why wouldn't you tell Giannis, look, just take it easy. We'll see what we do in the offseason. We'll have another draft pick to trade or draft, and we'll be able to try again. The one thing that Milwaukee can't be criticized on, because you can criticize them for um, the Dame trade, the Drew trade, whatever the hell they did with Miles Turner. you can't say that they haven't tried because those three transactions are of a team that's they're trying. They're trying something. They're trying different stuff. It's just none of it has worked. And so is it worth it? Is it worth to try to claw yourself into a playing game or a late round or late or a late or six seed to then just get bounced in the first round? Is it better to just shut it down, get a high draft pick, and see what you can do around Giannis? Um, Charlotte Hornets, 23. Um, this is a team that's probably everyone's favorite team in terms of just how they've played. They are 26 and 29. The Bucks are 23 and 30, by the way. But they're 26 and 29. And the question for them is, can the young guys stay healthy? Can they make healthy and can they make a real push and lock down a play-in spot? Right now they're nine. They're ninth seed. And so right now they're right there. But can LaMelo stay healthy? Who got in a car accident today? So we'll see what comes out of that. Um, Brandon Miller, can he stay healthy? Can this be a team is able to put it together down the stretch and get into a play-in? Because if they're able to do that, then all of a sudden the Charlotte Hornets begin to have real ideas for next season. And this is the hope that gets sold to these teams that are tanking is the hope of OKC, which is the highest level of what you would want. But the Hornets are in that too. They've tanked forever, they've sucked forever, and now they got a roster of good dudes, of good young players, and they're right in the mix. And so it would be awesome if the system wasn't built around tanking, where you're able to see these guys play and given a chance to play meaningful games and moments before, um, before today, before this season. And so, can they stay healthy? Because that's going to be the biggest cake, the health of the young guys. Atlanta Hawks, they find themselves currently 26 and 30. They're the 10th seed in the East. And the question for them is they traded Trey, they moved on and they're kind of just in a different spot of their era. And Jalen Johnson is their guy. He is their dude. He's the guy that's gonna be given they given him the keys to the franchise. Ricochet is there to hopefully rise up and fulfill whatever it is that they think he can fulfill. Nikhil Alexander Walker has been awesome for them, and his scoring has been such a revelation. Who knows what's going to happen with Kaminga and Dyson Daniels is really good. So it's a team that has a lot of good athletes, a lot of good young players. Um, but can it amount to anything? Can it amount to anything that can give you hope? Anything that can make you believe that the Atlanta Hawks can not just be the typical Atlanta Hawks that we see this play-in, tournament team, but can they be a real player? Can they become what Cleveland has become? Can they become what Indiana has been? Can they be that? Can they get to the Detroit type of level? That's the question. Chicago, the most boring, vanilla, frustrating team, the saddest team, um, apart from the Kings in the NBA. They're 24 and 31, and they made dumb trades. Like their trades made absolutely no sense in the trade deadline. Some would ask, are they gonna really tank now? And the answer is probably is like, well, they kind of have no choice. Like, yeah, I mean, probably. Like, even if they didn't want to tank, air quotes, their team is not good. So, yeah, probably they're probably gonna lose a bunch of games. Um, and the question for them is, why don't you guys boycott this team? Why don't you do everything in your power to get this guy out? The Dodgers are, the number one team in baseball now, and people look at the Dodgers now and they're world beaters. They are the 800-pound gorilla. But there was a time when the Dodgers weren't that. There was a time when the Dodgers were owned by Frank McCourt, and um, he couldn't play the players. And Dodger fans stood up and boycotted because they believed in the team. They believed that the Dodger name meant more. And I just don't understand why the Bulls fans, since Michael Jordan, have just allowed um, that team to be ran the way it's ran. I don't understand why you support a team like that. And the question is really for the fans. How long? How long are you going to endure this? How long are you going to just allow this? And the Bulls do a good job of stringing at the nostalgia, and they'll bring back the legends, and they'll bring back the Bulls teams of the 90s, and they'll retire, Derrick Rose's jersey, and it gets you, in the fields. But you almost have to think of it like, as long as that guy is owning the team, I'm not going to show up. As long as he's owning the team, I'm not going to support, because it's insane. It's insane that what's happened to the Bulls. They are just, in the Bible, there's a story of the Israelites who just roamed the desert for 38 years. This is the Bulls. The Bulls have just been just going in circles, just since, whatever. Ever since Derrick Rose's injuries. You just like, where are the Bulls? Middle of the pack. Where are the Bulls? Middle of the pack. Where are the Bulls? Middle of the pack. They are the playing Bulls at this point. The Chicago playing Bulls should be their name, because that's where they're at. Pathetic. Um, this next section is just play in, and when I mean play in, this is, so if the last year was mediocre, below average, this is average. This is where we're at, the average teams. The Phoenix Suns, who have been the toughest team in basketball, who have played with so much heart, and Derek Brooks has just been um, super awesome for them. That's made people be like, man, you know what? Maybe you kind of do need a guy like that. And so we haven't seen Jalen Green play for them at all, which is going to be interesting to see them play. Um, because he's going to give them offense. He's going to give them an offense that they don't currently have. He's going to give them the opportunity to stretch the floor, and just give them another score that they desperately need. And so they find themselves in a situation where they've had some injuries and they're kind of just making their way back. But can Booker, and when Jalen Green comes back, and Dylan Brooks, can they do enough to push the Suns to the playoffs? That's the question I have for them. Can they? Can they do it? Can they do enough? Can they maintain the effort that they've had and get into the playoffs? because they're not going to be fun to play against. And it's just going to come down, can they rally? Can they overcome all these things that they've already overcome? And that's what we're going to say. That's the question. Golden State Warriors, 29-26. Um, and they are currently the eighth seed in the NBA, in the Western Conference Finals. In the Western Conference, sorry, not the finals. Um, they traded for Porzingis, in case you didn't know. They traded Kaminga for Porzingis, among others. Porzingis is supposed to come back soon. Who knows what that means? Who knows for how long? Steph Curry's supposed to come back soon. Um, and the question is very similar to Phoenix. Can they make a run? Can they push? Can they stay healthy enough to make a run, to make the playoffs? And that's what we're going to find out. That's the question. Clippers, who traded James Harden in a surprising trade. And James Harden's just, he's all about the Benjamins. That's it. He's all about the money. You're not going to extend me? Trade me. They got Darius Garland, who I think for this year, Cleveland won the trade. Going forward, you would think the Clippers would win it because Garland is younger. But it just seemed like Cleveland was. It's kind of telling that Cleveland was kind of like, yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good with you guys being gone. We're good. We're good with you guys getting out of here. Which is um super crazy. It's super insane that um that's what happened. But it makes me wonder, is Garland's foot worse? Is his injury history gonna be that awful? Is his body just done? But who knows? But Kawhi's been playing phenomenal basketball. He's You can make the argument he's been the best player um, over the last 2 months or so in the entire NBA. And the question really comes down, and the answer is probably no. But can Kawhi stay healthy enough to for the Clippers to continue on this search? The answer is probably no. But can he? Who knows? Because they were so awful. They were so bad in the beginning of the season. But they've been so good lately. But because they had to climb out of such a crazy hole, they're 10th. So can they keep climbing? Can Kawhi stay healthy enough to keep climbing? And who knows? That's what we're gonna have to find out. I forgot to do the Nuggets, the Mavericks in terms of the bottom teams. So the Mavericks, who are 1935, they've lost nine straight. They've pulled the plug on the season, and they're gonna just enjoy the Cooper Flag um, experience. He's gonna win Rookie of the Year. He's phenomenal. He's amazing. Like he is all of that. He's not Luca, but he's really good. And can they build around him? They build a championship team around Luca. Can they do it again? And that's the question that I would have for the Dallas Mavericks. Um, the Pelicans. The Pelicans, who are 15-41, they are one of the worst teams in basketball. And is it time to pull the plug on Zion? It's finally time. And maybe you won't get much, but maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's just time that you kind of figure it out. And it's weird, just the way they're what they're doing, because you would think that they would play Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears a lot, which they're not. Doesn't make any sense. Um, they've absolutely are not going to play Jordan Poole, which makes sense. But it's probably time to just move on from Zion. It's probably time. Um, Herb Jones, who I like, and I wanted the Lakers to trade for him. He kind of doesn't play all that much, which is super alarming. But he plays in New Orleans, so people kind of don't like it. Doesn't come across the radar. Um, but I notice, and that's weird. It's weird that he doesn't play a whole lot. Memphis, the Grizz, who are 20 and 33, they traded Jaren Jackson. They traded Bain in the offseason. They were trying to trade Jaw, but no takers. Um, where do you go from here? Do you try again with Jaw? Do you hope he grows? Do you hope he matures? Is he really worth that much to the city for you to be held hostage by him? I don't think so, but maybe to them he is. Maybe that's where they're at. Maybe to them it's like, yeah, like he is our guy. So yeah, man. And moving up to the middle of the pack, Portland, who has been probably the a delightful surprise for everybody watching this year. They started off with a crazy Chauncey Billups in that betting scandal, and Thiago Splitter, who took over, has done a phenomenal job. Um, Denny Advia, who's an all-star and has been really good for them. Uh, he's been leading them. Scoot Henderson, who's back after just missing most of the season. Damian Lillard, who's going to play next year, won the 3-point contest. So there's stuff there. But my biggest question for them is can Scoot Henderson adapt to the roster? And that's what I'm going to be looking at for them. Can he adapt? Can he adapt to the things that are going around in that roster? Can he be a good complementary piece? Because if he's not able to be a good complementary piece, um, it doesn't bode well to his future there. So, can Scoot Henderson be a good complementary piece in Portland? Would be my question for them. Um, the Miami Heat, who are like the Bulls, just a perennial middle of the pack. Um, 29, 27, they're the eighth seed as of today. And the question is, will Eric Spoelstra, who's a really good coach, will Eric Spoelstra, who was a really good coach and like went at for like was like super um critical of Ware, uh Kalel Ware, and he didn't want to play him and Bam Adebayo, but it works. Is he gonna go with that? Are the Heat gonna trot out and try to make this Bam and Kalel Ware thing work? That's what I'm interested in seeing from them. Can their double big lineup work, and can it propel them to higher than the playing game into a six seed? We'll see. The Orlando Magic, who let me look at this list. Yeah, the most disappointing team in basketball, the Orlando Magic, 28 and 25. We thought this might be the dark horse. Well, I thought this might be the dark horse to make the finals coming out the East. And Paulo Banchero's just mm, leaves a lot to be desired. A lot to be desired. Um, they have injuries galore. Wagner is going to be gone for more time. And the question that comes for them is, can Paulo Banchero um, lead them? Can he be good? Can he be more consistent offensively? Can he be the guy? This is what we're going to learn. This is for better or worse, um, the way we see Paulo will be dictated by what happens from here on out. And so, if heading into next season, as a collective, we are out on Paulo, it's because of this stretch. And if as a collective, we're like, no, 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 he's still good. Don't quit on him. It will be because of the stretch. And that's where, and that's the reality for Paulo, for the Magic. That's where we're at. They're solid playoff teams. So these are the teams that are guaranteed playoff teams. They're going to be in there. They're solid. You know, that's solid. Would be how would characterize them. Philadelphia 76ers, it seems like the perennial question for them is can Joel Embiid stay healthy? Um, Not the question I have for them. They're 30 and 24. They're sixth seed in the East. Um, can Maxi and Vetchcombe lead them? Can Maxi take another leap in the playoffs? The question is not about Embiid. Embiid will be there, or maybe he won't. He will give them what he'll give them. But can Maxi just take another leap? Or is this who he is? A really, really good player. Is he a special player? And that's my question for them. Toronto Raptors, who have been a pleasant surprise, fifth seed, 32 and 33. Scotty Barnes has so how we saw Scotty Barnes last year is how we see Paulo Banchero this year. And Scotty Barnes this year has answered the call. And now we're like, actually, Scotty Barnes is really good at basketball. And he is maybe good enough to be a number one in the team. For sure, really, good enough to be a number two on a title team. Can they keep it? Can they keep going? Can this young core finish the job, getting into the playoffs, secure a direct playoff spot? Can they do it? I think they can, but can they do it? That's the question I have for them. Cleveland Cavaliers, who just a weird team, very weird team, man. 34 and 21, fourth seed. If it wasn't for the Magic, this would be the most disappointing team. But um, it's kind of like, yeah, I guess Um, James Harden has looked really good. James Harden is like, what's that character in the X-Men? Just transforms. He can adapt to almost anybody. He can just play with like he's good at that. Um, it's crazy to think that they're trusting James Harden in the playoffs, but um, is this the year? That's the question. Is this the year? Do we finally put it all together with this group? Can they do it? We'll see. I don't think so. James Harden. We'll see. New York Knicks are in this tier. 35 and 20. They've had really bad lows. Then they made you feel good, and then you're like, eh. Mm. And the question for them is, can they sustain? Can they be good enough defensively and without falling off offensively as we begin the playoffs? Can they just maintain this balance of being really good on defense without their offense falling apart? And that's the question I have for the Knicks because I don't know. I don't know if they're capable, if they're able to do that. Then I have the Lakers 33 and 20, 33 and 21, the fifth seed in the Western Conference. Um, Depending on when you see the Lakers, sometimes they look like an awful team. Sometimes they look like a really good team. Um, and the question, can Luca, can Austin Reeves, can LeBron James just carry this team through a longish playoff run? They certainly have the top end talent to do so. So that's the question. Can those three dudes shoulder the load and carry them through the playoffs. I look at their center position, I say no. I look at their defense and I say no. But you look at those three dudes and you say, wow, you know what? Yeah, maybe they might be able to do it. And last team on this, at least in the West. No, actually, this is the last team in this. No, yeah, last team here. Um, I'm arguing with myself. Last team here, Houston Rockets. Kevin Durant files were released, allegedly, where he had a burner account on Twitter or X, and he's just dumping on dudes. Who knows if it's true? Who knows if it's him? Um, but can they withstand the lack of point guards, the lack of shooting from three, and make a deep playoff run? And that becomes the question for them. Can they rely on Jabari Smith enough? Can they rely on Reed Shepard? Can they do that? And that's the question because we don't know. We don't, they this was the team because you get Kevin Durant, you would think you would go all in. Kevin Durant has been amazing, really good this year. And I don't know how many of these seasons you're gonna have of Kevin Durant. Amen Thompson is really good, but he's kind of been whatever this season. Just kind of like he's been all right, but uh, you kind of were expecting him to take a leap, and the leap hasn't really came. Um, but can they overcome lack of shooting, lack of point guard play, uh, and get there and make a deep playoff run and be one of the scary teams to to Denver or to OKC. In the top of the league, the last tier, I'll start with the Denver Nuggets, so are 35 and 20. And the big question for them is will they have will they have Aaron Gordon in the playoffs? Will they have a ready to go Aaron Gordon? Because if they do, I'm picking them to come out of the West. If they don't, then I don't. I think it's gonna be the Thunder again. Aaron Gordon is the key to this team. Will they have him healthy in the to end the season in the playoffs? Then we have should I give you an East team? Yeah, the Spurs. This is the Spurs. 38 and 16, number two seed, dark horse, the team that made us see OKC as just mortal, beatable. They're not that scary. Um, can Victor Wembanyama just carry this team? Because we're kind of thinking, they're a year too early, and many times it's no, they're here. Can he just put on the cape? Can this young team handle the bright lights in the playoffs? Would be my question for them. But it's been a phenomenal story. Phenomenal story. Number two seed in the entire league. Um, then we got the Celtics, who are the best story in all the basketball, 35 and 19. Jaylen Brown has been amazing. Jason Tatum is supposed to come back sometime in March. They traded for Vooch, and he's going to be a really good addition for them. Um, and the question is, will Jason Tatum mess them up? Jaylen Brown has enjoyed a little too much this season, um, which question for the offseason would be, um, are we sure Jaylen Brown wants to be a sidekick to Jason Tatum once Jason Tatum comes back? But for this season, will Jason Tatum ruin the Celtics? We don't know. But they're the number two seed in basketball. And if Jason Tatum was able to give them 25 minutes just high in basketball, the Celtics might make it out of the East. And then we got the Oklahoma City Thunder, defending champions. They are they were to start the year like 21 and 1 or 20 and 1, something crazy like that. They're 42 and 14 now. That's the record is safe. Um, can they get healthy? Can they get healthy at the right moment and make a deep run? Because they haven't, Jalen Williams, we're still waiting for him to kind of round into form and be the Jalen Williams that he was in the finals and the playoffs. And if Jalen Williams isn't going to be Jalen Williams this season, the Thunder are not going to have a shot at the title. Can Jalen Williams be Jalen Williams again this season? Would be the question. And my last question for the number one team in the entire league, the Detroit Pistons, 40 and 13, best record. Well, actually, best record by percentage points because the Thunder are 42 and 14. They're 40 and 13. Number one seed in the East. Cade has been phenomenal. And the question would be, do the Pistons have enough shooting to make it through the East and make to the finals? And we'll find out. Those are my 30 questions for the 30 NBA teams. This is where we're at as we head into the second half of the NBA season. It's going to be fun. It's going to be just a wild ride. If you want a guide, you don't have to pay attention um, to anything that the Nets, Pacers, Wizards do. And you don't have to pay attention to anything that the Grizzlies, Mavericks, Jazz, Pelicans, and Kings do. Doesn't matter. Unless that's one of your teams. But in the West, the top 10 teams, pay attention to them. In the East, the top 12, depending on what Milwaukee does, you pay attention to them, and uh, and you'll be fine. So I'll be here weekly, keeping you updated and guiding you through the NBA playoffs. So that's where we're at. I wanted to end the pod today with the stuff that happened in the Champions League yesterday. Benfica, Real Madrid, um, and it was just, I think football is one of those sports where um, kind of just gets brought into more than any other sport that I can really think of where race really comes into the fold in a very real way. Um, and so there was the in the game, Vinicius hits a beautiful goal, and then he's dancing. The fans of Benfica don't like it. They start whistling and booing, and it becomes a thing. And then apparently, um, allegedly, we would have to say, right? He gets into a thing with Gianluca Prestiani, who's an Argentinian-born player. And if you watch football, you were like, well, no surprise there. Um, and apparently, he called him um, mono, which in English would be monkey, and he called him that a few times. Mbappe said he heard it. Um, and there's like this whole thing. The game stopped. Um, and the image and the video that goes around is Cristiani just covering his mouth with his jersey and saying whatever it is they said, and Vinny just losing his cool immediately when it happened. There's another video where Mbappe is telling him that he's a racist to Cristiani, and then there's Mourinho, who's trying to calm Vinny down, and Mourinho's comments were the weirdest because his whole stuff of like, why does he's a great player? Why does he have to do that? Why does this happen to Vinny? And why does he have to celebrate like that? And everyone's kind of like, uh, Mourinho, you're like, what are you talking about, man? Like your videos of you celebrating are one of the most some of the most outrageous stuff. Like, what are you saying? Um, and the sad part is we don't know. We don't know what Cristiani said. And if we're gonna give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Um, it sucks. It sucks that he covered his mouth. It's a cowardly thing that he covered his mouth because there's no way of us knowing. It becomes a he said, she said. Um, Cristiani came out and said, I didn't say that. He misunderstood me. Benfica came out and backed up Cristiani because, of course, that's what they were going to do. Um, and the part that sucks is that nothing gets resolved. And this black eye that's over FIFA because of all the racist stuff um, kind of just stays there because there's no way of knowing. And there's been people who are saying, like you want to ban. I saw some guy who was saying that maybe they should implement a rule if you're talking and you cover your mouth, direct yellow. And it's like, I don't know about that. Like that's kind of crazy. But I'll say this: if Prestiani really called him a monkey, if he did say that, then yeah, you're a punk for covering your mouth. Because if you're bold enough to say it, just say it and face the consequences. I believe Vinny. I just don't think he's going to kind of make that up. I don't think Mbappe is gonna go to war for something alleged. Because Mbappe was phenomenal, just his leadership and how he spoke and how he backed up Vinny. Everybody else, though, was kind of like he said, "This is what happened. We don't know," because it's one of the situations. Unless you're certain, it's really hard to then kind of go for war at it. And Vinny has all the right to get upset and react how he reacted because he believed he heard what he heard. But everybody else is kind of like, yeah, I didn't hear that, so I don't know. So weird situation. Um, but I want to highlight that because um, it's they're going to play again next week. And it's going to be talked about. And it's going to be a whole thing. So I wanted to kind of address it as well here on the pod. So with that, um, I'll end it. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you later.